we are on the eve of Wimbledon. Basically, at this point, it all gets underway at the weekend and into next week. Jenny Claffey, ex-tennis pro and tennis coach, is with us in studio. Jenny, how are you getting on?
Not too bad. Thanks for having me in here today. It's great to be here.
This is that time of the year where people, I guess even kids, are off school, they're watching Wimbledon, they're like, I want to play tennis. And I presume your own industry just goes to a whole other level over the next little while.
Yeah, this is the time where you see people out on the streets nearly with their tennis rackets playing tennis. But if I know a lot of people who say, oh, those 2 weeks of Wimbledon, that's when I used to play tennis. And now they're coming back to tennis and going, I want to actually learn how to play. So yeah, this time is really the busy period.
What is the tennis coaching industry like at the moment?
I think since COVID, it has hit an all level. Like, it's so high. There's so many people playing tennis. Obviously, there was a time there where golf and tennis were the only sports that you could play.
Yeah.
So, say for example, in the club that I'm in, we went from 250 members to 900. So There's been a huge increase in people participating in tennis, which is great.
And has that maintained its way through to, I guess, the post-COVID times?
Yeah. And a lot of the clubs around Dublin are at their full capacity, so there's waiting lists to get in.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
When you were starting off, was it also a similar situation for you, that Wimbledon was on television and it kind of increased the incentive a little bit, or it didn't really matter what time of the year it was, you just wanted to be out there playing?
Well, for me, I always wanted to be at the top of the game, be a professional tennis player, but Wimbledon was always the goal. You know, I had this poster in my bedroom I wrote myself. It was like, Wimbledon is my dream, I'll play it soon and win it. And I had that all through my childhood up as a poster on the wall. So Wimbledon was the most prestigious and the one that I think I wanted to win the most. I
guess just the fact that it was like beamed into Irish living rooms every single summer, the idea that you can actually see your dream on TV every single year is the sort of incentive. So what other things informed it for you throughout the rest of the year? Like, I know obviously your mother was a tennis player as well, so I presume that helps when it comes to having this visualization of what I want to do. Yeah,
well, I think I grew up with 4 older brothers and my mum was a tennis coach, so I think the incentive was there from early on that I wanted to be better than the boys. And I think maybe from about 7 onwards I thought, okay, I want to be a professional tennis player. I think it was helped by the fact that my mum was a coach, and then she was able to provide lots of opportunities for me that maybe others mightn't have had if they didn't have a parent involved in the sport. So I think from, as I said, 7, it was the dream was to get to Wimbledon. Like, I wanted to be a professional tennis player, and that was the pinnacle of what I wanted to achieve.
Was the sense when you were a kid that this was possible, that there was no obstacles in the way, that this is very much, even as an Irish young tennis player, that this is very much an achievable goal?
Yeah, well, I didn't see any obstacles being an issue at all. For me, it was like, I'm going to get there. So I was so driven myself that I thought, okay, I can get there no matter what it takes. Didn't see the obstacles for what they were.
For people who don't realise, what happens throughout your childhood and your rise towards tennis professionalism at some point? Because it's a pretty bumpy road, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, it's definitely not straightforward. In any sport, success is not in straight lines. But for tennis, to try to be a tennis professional in Ireland, it's very difficult because we're an island. So if you want to go and travel to play internationally, you have to travel. So you always have to take a flight, which is more costly. It's always going to take a little bit more effort. You're at a disadvantage in one way, because in a lot of the tournaments across Europe and internationally, if you're a home nation, so the tournament is on in Ireland, let's say, you're more likely to get a wild card and get into like a main draw. So your opportunities are there, whereas coming from Ireland, we had no opportunities going into tournament spots. You were almost always at a disadvantage. But being in Ireland, trying to be professional, big problem I faced as a kid was the amount of players that we had here playing and who wanted to be professional. It just wasn't there. There was a lot of kids playing, but they weren't necessarily pushing on in tennis. They were playing so many other sports. And then the facilities, obviously, we were in Ireland and we had no indoor facilities. They were only really coming into the form at that stage when I was a kid. Now you see more coming up around the country, but not enough. So facilities, the surface was an issue. And then competition, there wasn't enough competition here. But as I got into my teens, I started to travel and was travelling around the world then, playing and competing.
Where would you have to go to get good competition?
Europe was probably where I went. So from the age of 11, I started to travel internationally. So I was travelling alone at times, with a coach, but without my parents, which was obviously difficult at 11 years old. But the first tournament I played internationally was 11 in Italy. We were away for 2 weeks. That was like an eye-opener.
In what way?
Well, first it gave me a taste of what it meant to be playing and be travelling, and what it was like to be an athlete, at 11 years old and a professional tennis player. That's what it felt like to me. Is this was like a big stage. There was people watching. I had Ireland written on the back of my t-shirt. Like, I felt so proud. This is amazing, and that really gave me a big taste of okay, I want this, and gave me the fire in the belly.
You're representing your country now.
Yeah, that meant that's a big deal.
That's incredible. So when you talk about the lack of competition potentially within Ireland, the lack of facilities, is it a sense that even as an 11-year-old you're going abroad and you don't know if I'm ready for this until you actually get there?
Yeah, you don't know what you're going to face. You can only presume that they're going to be these incredible tennis players. Obviously, if they're playing for their countries, they're going to be amazing. And they were. I remember being completely blown away by the competition when I was playing, like how good everybody was. Whereas in Ireland, if you're at the top, there might be maybe 4 to 6 players who are really good. There wasn't this huge depth of players, whereas over there was just so many good players. Everyone was amazing.
How did he match up?
On my first experience, we didn't win, let's just say that. Right. But I mean, no, we definitely weren't at the top. We didn't end up at the top of the pool, but it was great to get that experience and see what it was like out there and see what the competition is like. And as I said, I took that home with me and was like, okay, this is it, I can do this.
Right, that's what I was just about to ask. So like, you see that experience, you go through that abroad, and you actually get home and that Wimbledon poster becomes more of a reality after your experience. Yeah, it becomes more, the dream is kind of more realistic at this point. So what happens after that, and how do you go about building from that first experience?
So as I said, I was 11 when I went there, so I remember coming back and saying it to my mum that, like, yeah, I really want to do this, I want to be a professional. And then from there, she and my dad, my family, they provided every opportunity possible for me to then try and go on and follow this dream of mine. When I was in 4th year in school, so I was 15, I took the year off and moved to Spain to go to a tennis academy.
Right.
So that was kind of the biggest move I made. Before that, in those years between 11 and 15, I was training full time, before school, after school, traveling a little bit internationally. But at 15, I up and left and moved to Spain to go to an academy. And then I was right amongst then all the other players of my age and a little bit older. And I was really being exposed to what it's like to be a pro then at that stage. So I lived there for 4 months and was staying with a family over there, and that was a big shock to the system, but it was all in pursuit of this dream, this big goal of mine to be a professional tennis player. So it didn't matter what kind of heartache I was suffering or homesickness that I had. I wanted to get to Wimbledon. I said Wimbledon was the dream.
I hate to be unbelievably cliche here, but Agassi's book is obviously something that a lot of people use as a touch point on tennis, but just some of the things you said there, like even in his book about the fact that his dad would drive him everywhere to tournaments. Obviously being on an island is a big impact on your career as a young Irish tennis player, but also, as you mentioned there, the fact of going to a tennis academy. Like in his book, he details how he absolutely hated the tennis academy he was sent to, because it kind of just felt like this very regimented training camp all the time. Was that your experience as well? Is that what tennis training camps are?
Well, I guess like tennis is like, it's not a monotonous sport as such, but I mean, it's repetition. There's so much repetition involved. You go to these academies and you are churning in day out, and you're just hitting as many tennis balls every day, and it was almost the same thing every day, but I knew that that's what I needed. I wasn't getting that at home. So I relished it and loved it and had this amazing opportunity to play against different players and people from different places. Like, to me, that was amazing. I thought this was, oh my God, this is where I want to be, and how can I get better, and how can I be better than these people, and what's next for me. So I was always looking ahead. I was never kind of caught in that moment of like, oh, this is boring, or but this is what it's going to take.
Jenny, fascinating to hear you talk there about the joy at representing your country and wearing that Irish vest. Like, I just wondering, and I know you've been coaching now for what, 13 or so years since your retirement, but like how does that compare, that feeling of playing in a big tournament during your career versus now seeing maybe the look on a kid's face or a teenager's face who something, a small skill in the game suddenly clicks. Like, how does that feeling from competing to coaching kind of compare?
Yeah, it's a very different experience, definitely. Like, it's in coaching, it's very rewarding. Whereas when I was playing competitively and going out to play matches, there was always this sense of enjoy this moment because this may never happen again. Like, go out there, those feelings that the in your belly that you get, the nerves, that feeling, you can never replicate that in your life ever. Nothing compares to that. Since being retiring, I don't think I could ever emulate that feeling of nerves and okay, this is all on you. Go out there, do what you can do. But now, when I compare that to coaching, is that it's a little bit different. You don't get the fire in the belly, but you get a rewarding sense that you're helping people and maybe potentially helping them grow their dream into being tennis players.
Like when you think about retiring in your mid-20s, and we've had different panels on Off the Ball over the years of, you know, sports people talking about early retirement and trying to deal with this idea that you know, the career that they built out for themselves in their head was suddenly cut short and injury enforced. Like, how do you feel about that now? I know sports psychology is a massive thing now, and players are looked after and kind of guided in terms of what comes next, but that must have been quite a difficult period for you.
Yeah, that was a huge disappointment. Obviously, my career was only starting to build, and I was having success and starting to win and getting the recognition, and things were going really, really well. And then it was just cut short pretty much overnight. I had a huge identity crisis when this happened. So, you know, I had always been Jenny, the tennis player, and Wimbledon was going to be the dream. That's where I was going. I was so close. I felt like I was so close to achieving that. And then overnight, this is taken away from you. So, yeah, it was like, who am I without tennis? I really struggled with that at the time. But as you mentioned, there's sports psychology. I had a great sports psychologist at the time and was working with him while I was playing. Because I realised also while I was competing that there's nothing separating me to any other player except what happens between your two ears. That was the biggest difference. So I hired a sports psychologist because I really found that was going to make the difference. And it did at the time. And that really got me through then the retirement phase. But after I retired from tennis, I was thinking there's no way I could give up on sport just like this. So I actually, in 2018, joined the Irish Rugby Sevens setup. And thought, all right, if I can't get to the Olympics with tennis, maybe I'll get there with the sevens. So I gave that a go. But unfortunately, injury cut that one short as well. I only lasted 6 months with 6 bone breaks. So that was all too quick as well. But as you mentioned, yeah, it was a big struggle, like those transitional periods from being an athlete to being Jenny Claffey without tennis.
And like, even in terms of an individual sport versus a team sport, you see people retire from team sports, and I guess they miss that added atmosphere and camaraderie from their teammates as well. But how is it in an individual sport? Because, you know, for boxers or for Formula One drivers or for snooker players that retire, and tennis players as well, it must be quite surreal, because you've been, you know, there by yourself and you're there with your coach growing up, but all of a sudden it's just you in the big bad world again.
Yeah, because as an individual athlete, you have a team around you. So obviously I had like 2 tennis coaches, I had a sports psychologist, I had a fitness trainer, I had a really great close-knit support group around me. And then overnight as well, that was just gone. You know, they were there every day checking in, how are you doing, you know, whatnot, and giving me the brief, etc., like what we're going to be doing every day. And then just like that, they're gone as well. And now I don't mean they just dump me like that, but as in you get used to having that support network around you all the time. So that was also a struggle as well, not having those people around you, because obviously they had to move on and move on with their own lives as well. So that was a tough transition too, as well as the not having tennis there.
So in the middle, there's obviously the part where your star continues to rise. The academy and your time in Spain goes really well, and you become in a position where you've still continued to believe that Wimbledon can happen for you. So can you just talk us through what happens over the next couple of years after that?
Yeah, so after living in Spain, then I also lived in Holland as well and was competing in a league over there. So you're playing at European leagues, so you're playing against different countries, different clubs around Europe. So that was really great experience at getting match play. So that happened through that 4th and 5th year in school. And then I suffered a shoulder injury, unfortunately, which had me out for nearly a year. And then I was at that stage in 5th year in school. So I was only 16 at the time, where I was like, okay, am I going to pursue my education here in school, or are we going to homeschool and I'm going to make a career out of this? So that was kind of the really important, vital age to make that decision.
Yeah.
But I had an injury at the time, so we decided, okay, I'll finish out my education here in school. And then in 6th year I ended up getting glandular fever, and that had me out for 5 months as well. So I had nearly 2 years there off from the sport, and then it was kind of like, okay, is it too late now? And then I made a decision then to go to college in Dublin, because I'd missed 2 years of tennis. Like I thought, okay, it's how can I get back to that level and get competing overnight, which it just wasn't possible. So I went to college, and in hindsight maybe that wasn't the right decision in terms of for my playing career. Might have been better to just train maybe for a year or 2 and then join the tour. But listen, this is experience.
What do you think your ceiling was if the injury and glandular fever didn't happen
At that stage?
Yeah.
I think I'd be in Wimbledon this week if I didn't have an injury.
Really?
Yeah, I do fully believe it. Yeah.
And so those 2 years are absolutely the most pivotal points in your career, and they're just taken away, and it's not even that you're catching up afterwards, you just lose that development entirely, is it?
Yeah, like those 2 years are so important for my game, for competition, and then obviously I'm saying I could have been in Wimbledon, who knows what injuries could have happened, but with the path that my career was progressing, I would have been in Wimbledon by now.
How do you feel when you think about that?
Yeah, it's pretty gut-wrenching. As I said, I had that identity crisis and didn't want to have anything to do with tennis at that time. I hated it. I didn't want to see a tennis racket. I got invited to go to Wimbledon Centre Court. Didn't want to go. Didn't go. Just didn't want to be a part of the game. But I can look back now and see how that was an amazing short-lived career, but I had a great experience and great success when I did play. But I'm looking at some of the girls I competed against and beat, and who are playing in Wimbledon this week, and that's a bit sickening as well.
Because we have so many conversations around sport in this country where, you just need to have such a volume of tennis players for there to be that one gifted person. And it turns out that people maybe aren't aware that the talent was there in this situation, and it was actually the injury. It was just the lack of luck as opposed to not having the gem in the system,
Yeah. I mean, you could say that now about the system as well. Like, are there those talented players there, but they're just not getting the chance? Whereas I had the chance, I had every opportunity there, but unfortunately my body let me down.
When did you get invited to Centre Court?
In 2018.
And what was the context around that?
As in, why not? I didn't go.
Yeah, exactly. And what was, they were inviting you just as an ex-pro sort of thing to?
Just friends of mine who were living in London, and had tickets, and they were like, "Do you want to come?" I was like,
"Okay."
No. I said no.
This was just purely recreational, sort of to go along, watch the tennis for a while. You couldn't look at it.
No, but I have to say, if there's any Wimbledon tickets going out, I will take them.
I think everybody in Team OTB will be the same there. Yeah,
join the queue.
That's remarkable. Like I don't think. Sorry, Shane, do you want to come in there?
No, I was just taking out loud there. I think when Jenny was talking about, falling out of love with the game, like, how did you fall in love with the game originally? Like, you think of a lot of rock stars on the tennis circuit back in the era where you were probably growing up. You had Navratilova and Hingis and women who just tore the sport asunder. I mean, who did you look up to in that period as people who were probably key figures in getting you to fall in love with the game in the first place?
Well, the love of the game definitely came, from my mum and my family. I think, growing up with tennis, it was almost just byproduct that I was involved in it, and I think, as I said, that having my brothers I just wanted to be better than them, so that came from there, that love for my mum, and she is so passionate about the game. But like, my idol growing up was Kim Clijsters, so not sure she's from Belgium, and also Serena Williams, so they were kind of at the top of the game at that stage, and I was looking up to them and thinking, okay, Serena Williams is who I want to be. I want to play like her. I want to be like her. I want to be strong like her. And I kind of moulded my game around how she played, because I wanted to be like the two of them.
Like, even from your own career, and it kind of ties in nicely to our preview of Wimbledon as well, because a lot of people talking about Serena Williams' comeback at Eastbourne and how well she's looked, which is kind of, I guess, intimidating for the other players in that women's circuit in Wimbledon. But the player she was playing that doubles with, Ons Jabeur, this Tunisian who's now up to number 3 in the world. You have history with this girl. In fact, you battered her off the court at one stage. 6-love.
Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, so myself and Ons played when I was playing Federation Cup for Ireland. She was obviously playing for Tunisia, and we were playing in Egypt, and it was I think it was 1-1 in the tie, and it came down to this match, and we hammered her love. So that is my claim to fame, because she's now the number 3 seed in Wimbledon, and I have her as an outside favourite for Wimbledon. It's quite an incredible thing. Like, if she does go on to win Wimbledon now, you'll be desperately looking for the tapes of that match. But did you see anything? Obviously, if you beat her love, maybe this is a stupid question, but did you see anything in her at that point of her career where you thought
she could go on and do bigger and better things?
No, you see, like at the time you look back and you think, like, as I said to you, like you go to play these matches and everybody looks the same. Everybody has an amazing forehand. Everybody has an amazing backhand. It's hard to tell what's going to be the difference between people. Maybe she just needed to mature. She's a few years younger than I am, so maybe she just needed to mature a little bit more and gain a little bit more experience. And obviously she's done that very well, and she's certainly maximising her career now. You know, I'm looking at her playing with Serena Williams going, that could be me. That should be me.
Yeah, and it's not even a tongue-in-cheek thing. It's like, it seriously could be.
Yeah, like that's what I mean. Looking at those players, I'm like, who I've beaten and people I've played against, and you're like, that is where it really hits you hard.
Is this still a work in progress, trying to come to terms with that?
Does it look that way? No, I've accepted it now. No, I've definitely accepted it. Yeah, and I can look back positively at the career and the time that I spent and gave to tennis, and I have absolutely no regrets really, other than maybe making that decision at 16 to 18. But other than that, I have no regrets about what went on. Because
I guess nobody makes it to the top of the game without being unbelievably obsessed with it. Like, it would be totally understandable if there was still like this huge sort of not a feeling of regret, but this feeling of, no, I guess it is regret. A feeling of regret about how the whole thing went. It would be totally in keeping with the elite athlete's mindset.
Well, I would be lying if I said that I'm not absolutely sickened that I'm not playing in Wimbledon. And as I said, with those girls who are on the same trajectory as me, playing alongside them, knowing that I have beaten them, that I could be better than them, knowing that I could be playing over there, representing Ireland, representing myself, my family, everybody, you know, that is something that still goes through my mind, and I just try not to think about it, I guess, if I'm being honest.
Obviously the injuries are something that you couldn't really have seen coming, but if you could go back and, you know, try and change things with regards to the system or to the opportunities that you had as a young tennis player, what would you change? And I guess that's probably a question about where tennis is at the moment for very talented youngsters in this country.
I think something that definitely needs to change here is like the attitude towards tennis. So like people actually believing that there is an opportunity that you can become a professional tennis player in Ireland. It doesn't have to be that you have to choose other sports. So like there are, as you mentioned there can be these gems, diamonds in the rough, who are that talented and who can become professional tennis players. But you want to be able to do it here at home, not have to ship away, you know, move away at 15 and be away from your family and all that. So I think there's an attitude definitely towards tennis here that needs to change. I think it needs to come from the absolute, like the grassroots level, and from coaches as well. I think a lot of coaches in Ireland are, and rightly so, are out making a living from coaching, whereas there are not that many who are able to give all that time to those amazing talented players, because you need to obviously be, you know, accommodating your own life as well. So I think that the coaches, the system here with the coaches, like the attitude towards, if you see a talented player, how do you take them further? It's just not really very clearly laid out here.
What's the answer at the moment if you are presented with a very talented player?
Well, so I have a situation at the moment where a kid who's attending coaching he's only 9 and he's really talented, and I'm going, what do I do with him now? You know, I know what he needs, but I can't give that to him. In terms of, I don't have the time, unless they were, you know, able to afford to hire you full time and you could go full time with him. It's not available here.
So that 9-year-old essentially needs a full-time coach to be able to achieve his potential.
At this stage, yeah, and he needs fitness training, and he needs a lot of hitting with other players his own age or better players, which is not available to him in my current setup.
That's really interesting, and like are his parents and all that like very well aware that this is the path, that tennis is his thing, and this is potentially something that they're onto a winner with?
Well, yeah, he said himself he wants to be a professional tennis player. It's not often you hear the kids like who really mean that, you know.
That's you with your Wimbledon poster as a 7-year-old.
Yeah, a mini me, yeah, exactly, yeah.
Is it okay if we talk about Wimbledon this year?
Really, yeah.
Or is it too sore a subject?
Where are the tissues here?
Serena's back. How has she looked so far?
Yeah, amazing to have Serena Williams back. Firstly, you just have to say that kind of largely came out of the blue there. She announced 2 weeks ago on social media she was going to enter Wimbledon. She's playing this week, as we know, with Ons Jabeur in doubles. Apparently she's not looking too bad, but you know, she wasn't serving as well as she can, and her serve is a huge weapon for her on grass court. I think this is going to be a very interesting Wimbledon with her name in the mix, because I think she still has the power or presence of Serena Williams. So a lot of the players of the draw will lose just based on the fact that they're playing Serena Williams. But it's very hard to see how she's going to really make a dent in the draw when she hasn't played for a year. She hasn't played a match since last year in Wimbledon, the first round of Wimbledon. Nobody seems to know what kind of training has been going on. But could this be Serena Williams' swan song? could she go ahead and have that amazing career that she's had and match Margaret Court with the 24 Grand Slams? You'd like to see it, but
Absolutely.
I'm not sure that this is the end, or the end for her.
It's funny, Jenny, you mentioned the Serena's serve there, and like that's something possibly people have been speaking about from Eastbourne, that and it may seem an obvious thing, but she is serving and returning really, really well, and like the Serena of old, like heading into a major tournament, and again as a coach, maybe with your coach's hat on here as well, how important, again it seems obvious, but how important is that, having the serving and returning part of your game completely nailed down, and no rustiness whatsoever?
Yeah, that's essential part of the game. Of serve and return are the two most important elements in the tennis game. So especially for a player like Williams, who would have won a lot of points off her serve with aces or unreturnable, like forced errors off her serve, if she hasn't been playing and she's not match tight in those tight moments, can she produce those serves? Can she get them into the corner where she needs them to be? As well as that, though, playing on grass, grass is a very fast surface, so you need to move very well on a grass court. You need to stay very low, take the ball very early, which suits her game, but she has been known for her movement in the past not being the strongest part of her game. So if she's been out of the game for a year, it's going to be hard to see how she's going to be flying around the court as such, and penetrating the ball the way she can do if she doesn't have that match tightness, and in those moments where she needs the 30 all in the game, or the juice points where she needs to produce the big serve or the big return. Does she have that?
Like it was a big moment, like when Serena lost Patrick Mouratoglou, her coach, when he went off to I guess coach Simona Halep quite recently, and like 10 years with Serena is quite a long time, and you spoke about the importance of that coach and that coach-player relationship as well. Like, how big is that? Like, is that like, I don't know, is that like, it's almost like the Karate Kid, Mr. Miyagi thing. You need that person who's so close to you. Like, that must have been quite a big thing for Serena to lose Patrick, and probably is why there were so many retirement rumours fueling around over the last month or two.
Yeah, I would have felt the same. I would have thought that when Mouratoglou left to go to Halep, that was the end of Serena, but she's back. The coach-player relationship is essential and paramount to the success of your career, really, because they are the person you turn to after matches. They are the first person you call. They're there at every training session. You have that special bond with your coach, and they know you better than yourself. And well, if you can develop a relationship like that, then you're very lucky. And I was very lucky to have that with a number of my coaches. And speaking of that, if you look at Emma Raducanu and her coach's situation, she's looking for a fourth coach now in the last year. So I definitely think that's playing into the fact that she's not having the success that we all expect her to.
Just before we wrap, Jenny, could we get a quick prediction on each of the draws, men's and women's?
Okay, women's, I'm going to say Iga Swiatek.
Okay.
Yeah, the obvious.
She'll be able
one.
to transfer it from clay, you think?
I think with her 6 title tournament wins in a row, I think definitely she's going to. Ons Jabeur as my outside favourite, and the men's.
Please not for Jenny Claffey. He's so own state of mind.
And then for the men, Djokovic probably. Unfortunately, I think he's going to win this one. But outside favourite, I look at Berrettini of Italy. He just won Queens there last week.
Yeah.
And Kyrgios is an exciting player to look out for.
That'd be great. He's always one. He will be featured on this show a day in, day out over the next couple of weeks, thanks to Colin Bouygues, no question about it.